We're just getting started with this evening's, and Melissa has a question.
Yeah, my question is, until when do we keep reviewing the old material in the review section?
Right, okay. So keep reviewing it until the student no longer makes mistakes when you ask them what it is, whatever you're showing, whether it's a rule or a phoneme you're showing them, a letter you're showing them, and asking a sound. Okay?
Following the same question, I noticed that my student, oftentimes when she's bored with the material,
Yes.
she won't have 100% focus on the material.
Yep.
So often, even though the review material goes well, it's just because the drill in her head has been formatted to go with the same sounds, blah, blah, blah. When she goes into the new material where there are the exact same syllables, it's another format. So then she's not completely paying attention, so then she doesn't know how to read them.
So when she goes into another lesson, typically she would be learning something new. Every lesson typically adds something new, whether it's grammatical or spelling or just the reading is more difficult. So can you explain what you mean?
So it would be, let's say, reading a word with the syllable with "e" in there, for example.
Right.
And then she would forget that it's "e," and she will treat it as an English sound.
Yeah, I don't think it's really that she's forgetting that it's I think probably what you have is someone that you've accurately described as being too familiar with the material, maybe the order in which it's coming. And she can anticipate it kind of like a lexical string, like a magician's set of ribbons. She just knows what's going to come, right? So just try to reorganize it or do that at a different time. Or one of the cool things to do is, if you want to see if she really knows it, is trade roles with her and say, okay, right now you be the teacher and I'll be the student, and you have to catch my mistakes. And then the ones that you know that tend to trip her up, especially when you move to a new context, because I think that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Make a mistake on those.
Okay.
And then see if she catches you in the mistake. And if she catches you in the mistake, she knows the sound and can apply it. But very often children with dyslexia have difficulty applying letter sounds to new contexts, right? You think that they're evidencing a knowledge of the sound, where in fact, what they've done is processed that word so many times that they process it quickly. And then, so they're no longer thinking at the level of sound, right? So for instance, let's say your student was reading manteau, and because they have no difficulty reading menton and chanson and things like that, you think they've got a, n, nailed. But you change that context, for instance, to, give me a word, whatever, changer, whatever it is, you know, and all of a sudden they can't do it. And that's because if they don't know the word changer with the same fluency that they know manteau, then they're going to be back to the level of decoding.
Okay.
Right? Which means they have to pay attention to the individual sounds. They've got to look at the CH and go sh, j, whereas when they're looking at manteau, although they're processing all of those sounds, they're doing it so quickly that they're not aware of processing those sounds. Okay, so what you've got is kind of, let's say, word recognition versus decoding that same phoneme in a new context.
Okay.
And that is one of the problems with decoding with review, that is only the phonemes a, e, whatever. So we are actually creating decoding sheets. I don't know how many of you have seen them. I've had them put into your Google Sheets. So we're creating decoding sheets as exit passes. So for instance, in the English, I think it's lessons 2 to 6. And then there's a decoding sheet that the child has to be able to pass to go on to the next lesson, and we will get them for French too. Okay, and that will be a way to affirm that they really know that sound, no matter what the context is.
Okay.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah,
Perfect.
absolutely. Yeah.
Perfect.
I have
Okay.
one more question.
Okay.
It's pertaining to the phonemic awareness activities. Since my student is Anglophone, I understood that she has to do all the activities in English. There's one activity where I believe I'm the one giving her the phoneme so that she forms the word.
Yep.
I'm not sure I have the right pronunciation for the phonemes.
I understand that. Yeah.
She gets what I mean.
Yes. No, and that's a really good point. I'm glad you raised it. I mean, it really shows that you're paying attention to what's happening in your lessons. So email Nadia and ask her to this is theoretical. I want to think about who your student is before I complete this, but ask Nadia to give you the French blending and segmenting tasks. Okay, do them in French. You might have to, if the words are too difficult for her, we might have to create a simpler set that perhaps more appropriate to somebody who's in immersion.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Yeah.
Who is it? First name?
Kayla.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm pleased if Kayla can do anything that you're doing. She came to us with almost no French at all, like no French at all. So very cool. Yeah. Do send Nadia that email and CC me so I can follow up on it. Will you?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you. Nora.
Yeah, I just wanted to add it to what Melissa was saying about when you start the review part. And then basically what happens with my student, because so many times he can't finish one part in one lesson. So if we're doing, for instance, ank, ak words, and we have like 10 rows, he can never do the 10 in one lesson. So we just do like maybe 4. So the next time we're doing the 4 as review, and then we have to do the next 4 or 5 in the new lesson part. So that's when I really feel like Melissa is saying, oh, he can't do this and then that right after it. So I would just do the review and then do a phonemic activity and then come back. So breaking it makes me feel that, okay, now he can handle the new words. So I just wanted to, I'm not commenting on what Melissa was saying. Yeah.
Right. Can I get you to clarify what you mean by review? Because in my mind, you've talked about fluency work as opposed to review
No,
work.
I wanted to say fluency.
Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Yeah. And that will very often be the case. But, fluency work oughtn't be done before the child has some level of comfort. So really, Nora, what you should be doing, the ank lesson, it's difficult. It's very difficult, right? So instead of, so you package it up 3 or 4 lines at a time. He works on those. You can go do your phonemic task and come back to more of that. But the next time you meet him, if he doesn't have some sense of comfort with ank, your fluency should be on something he did in a previous lesson.
Okay.
Not on the ank, because fluency is about for things that we know how to do, but we're getting better at them. But if you're chunking and he can't make it through 10 lines, which would be 30 words, 40 tops, if he can't do that, then he's not ready to show off how well he can do it, which is kind of where your fluency is going. Okay. So one of the things that you can do when do you chunk it and then get him to repeat within the chunks?
So in the fluency or in the new reading part?
Say in the new work.
So like we would do the across the row down the column that for whatever I feel he can handle. So if it's like 4 lines, then that's going to be the reading for this lesson, because after that he just can't focus anymore.
Which student is this, William?
William. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things to do is to get him reasonably fluid on one line before you go to the next. So
Okay.
if your words are bang, bank, clang, clank, and he has difficulty with those four, don't move on to the second row. Go back and you can say, I'm going to say them and you say them after me. Very, very often, children's difficulty reading has got lots more to do with what they are practiced at doing in their articulatory system than what they actually can figure out in decoding and recognition, right? They have trouble making the sounds. So for instance, I was subbing for Mario last week. He's got a student that can't do an ST blend. Okay, so he knows it's there. But for instance, if he were reading stop, let's say, and he didn't know the word stop and he were decoding it, he would say st and then ah and then p. He might say the t in there a second time, but when he knits it all together, what he usually says is sopped. And this isn't, I mean, that's dyslexia. You're hearing dyslexia, but the other thing you're hearing is that this is hard for him. St is hard for him. And so he can't keep them together because he has trouble getting them together, right?
Mhm.
So lots of times what you're going to find is that difficulty reading is about the speech, getting it's words that they probably aren't used to saying very often, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so do the first one. You can be the teacher and let him catch your errors. Say, okay, I'm going to read the first one. They pay very good attention when they want to catch your mistakes, right? And try that, and then say, okay, well, let's see if you can do it again. I'm going to be the teacher. Let's see if you can be better than me. Sometimes if you gamify it, you know what I mean? You make it a little bit of a competition, and far better that he gets pretty fluid at 4 words than he gets not very well at all on 4 lines, right? And you can always break that up, and you can go after that, go to your second line, go, how good are we going to do this? You can again gamify. You can say, oh, you're on level 2 now. Can you get through level 2? You know what I mean? And do the same thing. And once you get him reasonably accurate and smooth with the second line, then say, okay, here is the big competition before we go to another activity. Can you do level 1 and level 2? Okay, then you can go do a phonemic activity. You can even break your phonemic activities in half if you need more work breaks built into your system. You know what I mean? So you could take him off and have him do whatever you're working on phonemically and say, okay, are you ready for level 3? And then go back. It isn't important when they're first learning it that they can do 30 words at a time or 40 words at a time. It's not what it's about. Okay, does that help?
Yeah, actually, lots of what you're saying, actually, we do, especially with William.
Okay.
He has a certain style in his lessons, so it has to be lots of games, lots of
Yeah.
drawing, lots of so yeah. I try as much as possible. Yeah.
Okay, we'll reach
But
out if it's not working and we'll see what we can do for you.
thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Nobody? Wow. Yes, Melissa, go.
Okay, my next question is an issue I have with a student. It's for the rhyme production in
Yeah.
French.
Yeah.
And he's had a tough time with finding rhymes, especially for sounds like oa or e, or those that not a but oa. Then there's another one, can't think of it, but it's like 2 vowels together. Or oui, for example,
Oui.
oui.
Yeah.
And he cannot find, he can find one rhyme, maybe he wouldn't be able to explain why, or he wouldn't be able to find 2 rhymes.
Okay, so there's a couple of issues. Number one, does he understand the concept of rhyme, that it's the last parts of the word that have to be the same?
I don't think he understands it yet because he cannot really explain the when I say oh ok ça rime parce qu'il se termine avec
Mhm,
um, then he has to think hard. And I feel like because we did it so many times, the last
mhm,
time we did it, it was mostly like a memory of oh because I said one word was mal one
mhm,
day, and then I said mal sal, and I said oh it ends with al,
mhm.
and it's just a repetition of something I said earlier. Maybe
How good is his working memory?
his working memory. What do you mean?
Mm. Um, his short-term memory, like does he, pardon me, I'm just gonna turn that down. His short-term memory, does he remember things as you're working?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, is his focus pretty good?
When he's reading, yes, yes.
Okay, so what you might try, doing a game where he has to judge which 2 of 3 rhyme. That might help you put the focus, help him put the focus on that you're speaking about a specific ending. But when you start something like that, you would want to make your endings really different,
Mm,
right? So for instance, you wouldn't want to do loin and ne at the same time. And French rhyme is a nightmare anyway. But so maybe you want to say ne, pain, ville. Do you know what I mean? Make them so different that you necessarily focus his attention on the sameness.
mhm.
And then just gradually build that out. And it's not that he has to remember at this point, because if you make them that different, he won't forget, right?
Yeah.
But over time, what you would do is you would make the rhyme, you would make that judgment task increasingly difficult, okay? But all of the time you want him to go back and say, oh, well, it can't be ville because it doesn't sound like a and pang. And then what you can do is you can segment the first sound
Mhm.
from a, from a, you understand? And help him hear that it's the a you're focusing on.
Mhm. I
Okay.
tried this part of breaking down the like,
Mhm.
and even did games like, okay, so this is blue, and then
Mhm.
okay, so which one's the same? He could see it, and but he couldn't say it. He couldn't say, oh, it's and he had to think that because there are in his head, it feels like there are more sounds in there, so he doesn't know which one to pick. So, for example, if I say sale, mal, sometimes he'll say the common word, they are all the same because it ends with l.
Yeah. And
So
you
then I'm
can
like,
say, yeah, and what else, right?
oh,
So sometimes when I'm working with somebody who's like kindergarten or something and they're not there, sometimes what I do is I show it to them, right? And I help them get the concept by showing it to them. So for instance, if I want them to understand a simple rhyme, I might show them rat and sat. And I would underline the at, and I'd say, what does just that part say? And they say at. And then I'll go to the next word. What does just that part say? At, at. That sounds the same. Does that sound? Yes. And so can we find another word that ends in at? So the good thing about phonological awareness is that it doesn't matter what language you do it in, okay? Doesn't matter at all. So if that child is very comfortable in French, do it in French. If the child is more comfortable in English, do it in English. Just, and don't worry about your sounds right away, because you're not doing blending. You're not doing blending into words. And even try doing it with non-words. So let's say, one of the things that I used to do when I was working with little ones who couldn't understand the concept of rhyme or create a rhyme is we'd have our vowels, say in English, a, okay, and maybe at, And then I got like a, like a piece of paper, like a ruler, and I wrote consonants down there. And then I would just move it down. So b with, at is, bat, k with, and then k without is cat. Look at, they sound the same. That means they rhyme. And then after a while, you stop saying what it means. You ask them what it means. But you can do that with any set of sounds. So if it's the concept of rhyme that he doesn't get, you don't have to go as deep as real words. And the other part of this is to remember that he may not have access to a very rich vocabulary. And if he doesn't, his struggle might not be about concept of rhyme. It might be that he's got no words to rhyme with you. And so at every point, it's important to tell them if there's any hesitation, you can make it up and show them how to make it up. So if the word was pain, for instance, then you could say, let me make one up. Zin, right? That rhymes. Can you make one up? And making them up is a really, really good idea, because then it's not about recall and access to vocabulary. Then they're really overtly showing you that they're creating a rhyme. And I will ask our resident SLP if she's got anything to add to that.
Not really. Everything I had in mind, you mentioned it. I was going to start with rhyme detection to see whether or not they're able to do the judgment. And like you said, if they don't understand the concept of the rhyme, I will often show it to them. So I'll write the word and show it to them. Yeah. They often need to understand that it's the last vowel sound and everything else that follows the vowel. Right. So sometimes that's what the piece that's missing. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't have anything else to add.
All right, thanks, Rose. Okay, Melissa, if that doesn't help, or if you want those kind of things written down, again, email Nadia and CC me.
Okay.
All right, absolutely. Everybody, oh, Sarah.
I have a question. So if a student is consistently making errors in the review portion with certain consonants, for example, qu, and it's been happening consistently. I'm wondering, other than, so what I've been doing is I've just been correcting the student and saying it and asking him to repeat it. He's definitely has a lot of attention issues. I'm wondering if there's anything else I can do to help him really internalize it so that he gets it right the next time we review it.
For sure. What's your student's first name?
Owen. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Owen. What unit and module is he on? So short U?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so if he doesn't have a movable alphabet, find out if he's just got letters hanging around. You can use a Jamboard for this. He could write whatever you want. I'm not sure I would give Owen access to my whiteboard. Anyway, what you can do is you can review it. You can separate it and have him identify which part of it's a digraph, but it's a blend that wants to be a digraph, right? And so say, point to the Q. What sound is this letter making in this combination? Point to the U. So the thing is that he's going to make a mistake there, but you are forcing him to focus on something that he's not focusing on. You say, read it, he makes his mistake, you correct him, it's over, right? So put him in a position where he has to think. So one of the ways to do it is, what's the first sound? What's the second sound? And he may well get that wrong and think it's you. And then you have to say, well, if you can write quit or something on your board. Does that say quit? What does that say? Quit, make him say it. And so then teach him that that's, and try to make it as opposed to qua, right? I will send out, some people in the last group wanted an alternative to Hangman. So I sent them Snowman. So the snowman melts and his parts fall off. It's much friendlier. Anyway, the one that I found, you can make your own. You can make your own. And so that would be a good thing. You could work with a lot of words with QU, right? And what you can do is you can make it, so instead of just doing like quick, quiet, do quit, do wit, do kit. Make him focus on the differences between those sounds. And you know what I mean? So that's one thing that I would do. Again, you could write a whole bunch of, in your review, a whole bunch of words that would be within what he's covered. You know what I mean? You want to work with that constrained vocabulary. And then you could say, just break it up. You're going to be the teacher for the review today, and I have to review these words. So can you help me review my words? And mess them up every once in a while, for one say quit, for the other one say Wyatt, for the other one say cack, and you know what I mean? And force him to do that analysis, to pay attention and do that analysis.
So we can, in the review portion, we can do things that are different from that
Oh, good
PowerPoint.
God, yes.
Okay.
We're just telling you what you have to cover, right? That's all.
Okay.
Just to let you know that Nadia and I and Julia are revising the English curriculum, and we are building review exercises and fluency exercises right into the lesson. So you don't have to come up with it. And we're actually also adding composition from pretty early on. So there you go. When that will be ready, I will say a year. I will say a year before that's ready. But, okay, exciting news. Last year, I hired 3 ECE teachers with different areas of brilliance, 1 math, 1 language, and 1 literacy. And I asked them to build a grade 1 readiness curriculum. We are launching November. English and French. Pretty good, eh? Thank you for the cheers, Sarah. Nora, question.
Quick question concerning spelling. So like for William, we've decided, Nadia decided a long time ago to stop having him write, because it's like for him, it's a big challenge. And we're always using the movable alphabet. And actually last time it was him who came up with the idea of writing the word in the chat. I said, oh, William, what is this great? It's so fast. And he does it really, instead of looking for the letters. So I just wanted to confirm, is that okay?
It's fantastic. Yes. We had to get William's parents' permission not, to leave go of the spelling, right? And it's like that. So that's why that was authorized, because it's just not going to come for him the way it does for others, right? So anything that you can do, he's not writing by hand anyway. So the thing is that when he's using spelling, he's learning the keyboard. To me, this is just a win-win. He's practicing spelling willingly. Wow. And he's developing keyboarding skills.
Okay, perfect.
Absolutely. I will tell you just as an example of something you can do with spelling that I do very, very frequently is I play, I'll now call it Snowman, Hangman. My students aren't squeamish. I'm not squeamish. I play Hangman, but I play a very teacher-directed version of Hangman. They still have a lot of fun, but we work, whatever it is, thematically, whatever the words are, that I can construct around what we're learning. And then the first thing that gets reviewed is that they will often start picking consonants because maybe they have favorite consonants, but I always remind them as the very first thing that we know that every word, in fact, every syllable must contain at least 1 vowel, right? So I say, why not choose your vowels? So they choose their vowels. When there's a word that's going to be obviously, to me, at least a 2-syllable word, and I see an E at the end, and E's come up and it's on the end. Please let me turn off my notifications. When I see that, then I take that opportunity to do a spelling review and I say, what do we know about an E at the end of a long word, a word that's it's gonna be silent? Okay, well, if you know that's silent, then you still don't have a vowel sound, do you? Go in and get a vowel sound, do you understand? And then, so let's say again, you know, he's chosen an E and it's come up in the middle of word as an EE, then I immediately circle that and say, what does that say? E. Okay, well, you're looking for a color that's got E in it. Don't think you've given them the answer. Who cares if they guess the word? This is about whether or not they can construct the word and how many words you can get them to construct in a 10-minute period, right? Well, it's green. Okay, well, what do you need? And he's got it, and they don't always know those letters, right? They don't always get them right. So it's a very easy way to reinforce spelling. A CH at the beginning of the word usually says, right? Blank H at the beginning of the word will usually be, for kids of the young age, one of three digraphs, sh, or sh, or sorry, or, right? And you can teach them those things. You can teach them those things. It will reinforce the reading and it will give them some spelling rules and they feel like they're playing games and not learning.
Okay.
Okay, so it's just another way to approach spelling. Yeah, I will send that Snowman resource as soon as we get off here. I'll send that. Okay, absolutely. It's fun to watch it fall apart. Yeah. All righty. No other questions? Okay, if there are no more questions at this time, well, that's cool. I'm going to post this on that, or Nadia, let's tell the truth. Nadia will post this on the YouTube website when we've got them all 4 meetings. She'll post them all. So it'd probably be worth your time to watch just to see what other people ask, because it may not be an issue for you now, but it might come up next week, right? And also just to let you know, so bill for this meeting on your timesheet, just choose a day on which you do not teach, write Diane PD or write PD, and the amount of time, and then under notes, just put the real date you attended. Get it? And that's the easiest way to do it. Your pay rate is the same. Your teaching rate now covers all that you do. Okay. Yeah, I think I did it all. Yes, Melissa, hello.
One last question.
It's all right. You can have as many as you want.
Okay. The spelling part of the lessons, especially for sentence spelling, is a bit of a disaster for my student. Because it's I don't think she gets any word right, any of them right. Is that okay?
I would have to go, this is still Kayla, right?
Yeah.
I will go in and look at the assessment of Kayla. Entirely English home, and she had almost no French at all, but they wanted her in French reading. It could be that that's just not going to take. And my concern about it is very little if that's the case, because she really was a child who didn't do any English. I think she took 4 classes a week with one of our teachers. I mean, she didn't do any French. She did 4 classes a week, I think, just to bring her spoken French up enough that we would agree to work with her on reading. So, you know, if we've got her from not speaking hardly anything, not understanding very much, and now she can read it and she's in immersion, I'm happy. I will look to see if there's a reason, like perhaps when we did, you know, the phonemic test on segmenting, word segmenting, maybe she wasn't able to segment accurately, and that would be a hint to us that she's going to have difficulty with spelling. But a whole bunch of this, honey, might just be that she's learned a lot in the last year and a half with us, including everything she learned in life and otherwise in school. You know, it's a lot. And so if what she can do at this point is read it, I think that's a win.
Okay. Yeah, she can read better now.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
she's less anxious about reading sentences, because before, once she saw that, she didn't want to read. So today she can read, and I
yeah,
don't want to discourage her in spelling either. So
yeah,
I encourage her, saying that, oh, at least the sounds are okay.
that's right.
Oftentimes she mixes the and e in English, or
Yeah, pretty
the
common.
I and e in French.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like, yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, just
So you might want to go back and do more focused practice on, is it or is it E? Okay, you might want to go back and do that. But I just want to go back to the spelling for a minute. Like, if you think about this child, and it isn't about her, but somebody in her situation. So we've got these children who are in immersion, okay? So we're talking very limited for most of them speaking vocabulary. They're just learning the language of the classroom. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I get a drink of water? Whatever that is. Jeffrey hit me, whatever, okay? They're just learning that, and we're teaching them to read. But they're not reading the way you read. So they're not reading a lot of stuff. And some of our ability to spell comes from constant exposure to words, right? So she's not doing enough reading. I can guarantee she's not doing enough reading to meet the criteria for exposure to words. Another part of our ability to spell comes from muscle memory. I can guarantee she is not doing enough writing in that classroom. And if you are the only spelling work she's doing, it's really there's not much point, because you can make her do it over and over and over, and it's not going to change if it's only within these 2 1-hour periods every week that she ever has to think about the organization of sounds. Right? So it isn't to be worried about at this point, right? Maybe later, if she stays in French in immersion, and if she becomes a more enthusiastic and more capable reader, maybe then she can start paying attention to words in such a way that if she had a careful teacher, we don't know how long she'll stay with us, but if you were still with her, then you could look at, these are the mistakes she tends to be. You know what I mean? She writes when she means or whatever, and then you could focus some work around that, right? But at this point, she's just not meeting the kinds of criteria she needs, pedagogical criteria she needs to order to recognize words and think about them.
Okay.
She's probably struggling just to get through the reading with you.
Yeah. Okay.
Nora, is that a real head?
Yes. Yeah. And actually, Melissa, thank you, because you're reminding me of many of my questions as well. So yeah, back to spelling. So like we have on lesson 7, for instance, the spelling is 24 words, if I want to say. So
Is that all?
Yeah, 24 words. So for William, we do them over 3 weeks, maybe. And then, of course, we've got lots of mistakes. So, and are we still looking for mastery at this point?
No. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I'd like to see changed, I just haven't organized the material around how to deliver it, is I'd like there to be, before any summative assessment spelling, which is what happens when we say, give the spelling, give a score, that's summative. I'd like there to be more formative work done in spelling. And so I'd like there to be the use of a movable alphabet or a Jamboard. And I'd like to make the association between the phonemes and the graphemes, and have them have more time. This isn't about being right and wrong, and we're not done spelling when you put down that word, no matter what. If I ask you to spell crayon, do you know what I mean? And you can't spell it, but you ought to be able to, because we've covered this, right? Then we need to take that apart and look at, what did that child really write, and get the child to read. So what does this part say? It says crap. Great, it does say crap. What does this say? This is in. Okay, so if we put that together, that's cra in. Is that the same as crayon, like make them think about the sounds, right? Yeah, so I'd like to see way more of that, and let's use the summative really as a summative assessment instead of just the spelling activity. I think it's a deficit in the curriculum, and we are working to correct it. And I'd love feedback on that. If if there are things that you'd like to see us put in or do it differently, we always want the feedback. One of our Rose, you probably know Patricia Lau. Yeah, so she's back from mat leave now. She's just joined us again, and I'll tell you, I've got stacks of emails from Patricia because she is a freaking eagle eye. And if I miss a period, if I miss a comma, she writes me. She'll say,
Do you want to know these things? I've just been skipping them. I was like, oh, okay.
No, I
okay.
do
Because
want
I
to
could
know
also
them.
be sending you emails. That just
Absolutely. Sometimes I don't teach a lot, but when I teach and I see it, I go, nobody's noticed this yet? No?
no, we noticed. We just, I don't know.
Of course we want to know, but yeah, it'll say, unit 2, module 3, blah, 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 page, boom, item number. You're missing an S. So yes,
I was gonna say I do the same thing for spelling as well. I rarely ask the student to write all the words or all the sentences. I'll do a few words or a couple sentences, and in my Google sheet, I'll write we spelled like the 3 words. You can add like a comment in the cell, so that's what I'll do because it's
yeah. I think spend more time on the relationship between the sounds, the phonology, the phonemic piece, and the letters, and then on building those words and practicing building. Like, who was it? Was it Sarah or Nora it was Sarah, I think, with the QU, right? So it's the same idea. I think it's far more beneficial. Anything formative and developmental is more beneficial than anything summative ever, right? Summative is for us, is so we can put a score in a report card, right? But if you go all the way through, and it's a nice way too, to go back and review only what they're having difficulty with. Because if you do that and you do it consistently, then at any time that a spelling test that you arrive on in a lesson is cumulative, boom, you give that and you've got a spelling score. And then it also tells you at that time, oh, no, we don't quite have this, so, and you go back and you do only those. And meanwhile, the reading just goes forward as it goes forward. Because I think that very, very often the reading gets held back because teachers don't want to move forward because the spelling isn't on task, right? Always move the reading forward. Okay.
And I have to say, since I've been, sorry, I didn't notice.
No, please.
Now, I was just gonna make a comment and say, since I've been working on blending and segmenting, I noticed a huge difference in my students' spelling abilities. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, like it was like night and day.
So my next meeting with Nadia about the phonological work is Friday, but one of my notes Friday is to talk to her and to talk to you about moving the segmenting and blending tasks back up that list towards the top.
Yeah, I would agree because I've noticed such a huge difference since we've been doing the phonological awareness work.
Yeah. And one of the other ways, if your student's really not ready to get to letters yet, okay, I have my students before their lessons when I'm teaching, I have them go get, just because we're there in the curriculum, 4 red Legos and 4 blue Legos. And the red Legos represent the vowel sounds, just like our movable alphabet. The blue Legos represent the consonant sounds, and you can take them from very easy stuff. One of the students that I was working with could not segment words for her teacher. In fact, she could, but I believe that she's just operating still at a very concrete level, and she wasn't ready for that abstraction. So I got her to get the Lego, and I said the word is at, say at, And then I said, you need a red one for your vowel sound and a blue one. You know, sometimes you have to make sure they know where to build from. So if they've got a stuffy, they can put their stuffy on the left-hand side, whatever that is, right? But they can do a lot of very good spelling because you can do it in steps. As soon as you get them to get comfortable with these are the vowel sounds, these are the consonant sounds, where does your vowel go? Make sure that they always build from the first sound, vitally important. Build from that first sound and go across and try it. And then once they can do that, the next thing you do is you have them one at a time from the left, from the stuffy, touch each one. And and then say the sound. Don't let it drag it out to the next one. Touch, say, stop. Touch, say, stop. And what you've got them doing then is they're now segmenting something. So they spelled it in their brain with the sounds. Now they're segmenting. So you're reinforcing it with spelling and phonemic awareness, right? And then once they're happy with those activities, then you could say, okay, well, the word is cheer. So how many letters does it take to make the ch? And then what my students start doing is they start building their digraphs up, right? So cheer then is two blues stacked on top of each other, followed by two red. I mean, that's brilliant, right? And they haven't touched a letter, and yet they have spelled in all the most beautiful ways in the world. And then in the end, if you want them to write cheer, they can write cheer. Because remember that they're very different tasks, right? Picking up a pencil then and writing it, an entirely different task, entirely different task. But there's lots of ways to get them to do this work. They have fun with it, right? They're playing with Lego, they have fun, but don't let them bring all the big, huge size Legos. Really, you know, you want the basics, right? Okay. All right, I interrupted, I think. Sarah.
Oh, I was just wondering if you could show us an example of how you would bring in the movable alphabet. It's just been a little while since I've invited students to use that tool. And I know they can use like Scrabble letters or something. So in the past, I would just ask them to bring like their computer down so that I could see what they were
That's
doing.
it. That's all we do. So the problem with just using Scrabble letters is, number one, they're all uppercase. So you can't bring capitalization into it and make sure that they're aware of that. But the other thing is that there's no difference in the color. So when you're first learning, about the laws of written language, having one that's red, you know what I mean? Every word, every syllable has to have a red. It can really be helpful, right? Two colors.
Yeah.
So, and this is organized. Because the other thing is I've had parents build alphabets. So they just dump a whole bunch of letters onto a cookie sheet and then hand the child another cookie sheet. We couldn't spell 5 words in an hour. You know what I mean? By the time the child finds the letter, it's just, yeah. So some of our students still have them. We occasionally will send one out to kids who are really, really, really low. But even if they just have Jamboard, I think there's a movable alphabet on Jamboard, is there not? Right? And I think there's a number of alphabets online too. But you can do this, you can even do it on your whiteboard with your red and blue inks. And if phonemically, if you wanted to do it on your whiteboard, we'd sometimes just do it with lines. So one of the things that I've done with my students is we'll have a word, and I will write 3 blue lines and tell the child what the word is, and then the job is to figure out which one should be the red one and which red one should it be. So where's the vowel and what vowel sound is it, so just different ways that you can play with things that get you moving through spelling in a lot better and more educational way, I think. Yeah, you know, the queen of that movable alphabet would be Nadia. She's made something, it's still not what we need, but she's made something on, I have no idea, but she can lead you through it. So if you want to see how to use it, ask Nadia. She will set up a meeting with you and lead you through it, okay?
Is it
Pardon me.
Jamboard?
Yeah, probably. You know,
Yeah. No.
there's a really good reason I'm not the tech person.
Okay.
I really love the jump that happens between grade 3 and grade 4. The way they develop over that summer. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Many of you will have seen the timelines in your Google Sheets. Time guidelines. Yeah, do you find them helpful? Not helpful? Intrusive?
Very
Troublesome?
helpful.
Yes?
Very
Okay.
helpful.
Yeah, anybody else have any feedback on that?
I haven't seen them actually.
Okay, can everybody see this? Google Sheet? I'm assuming
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. So you see
Yes.
the student's name, and then you also see how many weeks since she enrolled. Okay, and Nadia, brilliant woman that she is, has this all changing all the time. And so by the time you're at the end of lesson 4, we think it should be approximately 3 weeks. But some are faster and some are slower. But if you think your student is stuck, you need to reach out and see how we can help you. Because they can't just stay in the same lesson and module forever, right? And then this student now, about the end of week 5, we expect them to be done lesson 6. Now, there's no consequence of not being done lesson 6, not for anybody. We're just trying to give you guidelines. That's all. And so she is halfway through this next section, and she's at week 4.1. So she's doing just fine, right? Absolutely just fine. So they're there to keep you on track in terms of what's a reasonable expectation for.
But this has
right?
been there since the beginning, or did you change anything? I've been seeing that.
No, it hasn't. I think, I'm not sure when we did that, maybe during the summer.
Okay,
It
yeah,
wasn't
if
there
this
when
it,
you started.
okay, but if you're talking about that, yeah, this I'm seeing this one, yeah. I just didn't know
Okay.
that that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, so it's there is a guideline. And notwithstanding the fact we're not going to enforce it, the child can't go faster than the child can go. But the reason to reach out to us would be, it may be that we have found situations like that, and we know things that we can suggest that will move your student off of where they're stuck, right? And sometimes that will involve sending me a video of what's happening with the child in the lesson. So maybe I can see something and give some feedback, right? I can also come to a lesson. I can, come in on a lesson if it's scheduled at a time that I don't have a meeting or another student, and I can just sit there and watch if that's what you want, or I can feed you suggestions during your lesson, just whatever you like, if you feel like you need support. Nora, were you going to say something?
Yeah, but if like someone like William, he was already behind from the beginning. So when it was the first timeline, he was not there. So that's why he's always delayed. So he's never going to catch up for such a long time to the timeline. So
That's right. He won't. But what Nadia does is she computes from each section. Anything else? Going once, going twice. Have a
I just
lovely
had a clear.
Oh.
Sorry.
It's
gonna be quick. I just wanted to have a clarification from what you said in the beginning. So we don't need to upload our logs, but we still need to have our next lesson plan up, right?
Yes.
Just making sure. Okay.
Thank you.
And for the shift report, do we still need, because my understanding was that it was a way for you to know that the lesson happened. It was a way for us to kind of like, check in, check out. So we
Yeah.
don't need to even send an email if there's nothing
If
to
there's
report.
nothing to report, don't report.
Don't.
We will see, if you didn't give the lesson, we'll hear it.
Yeah.
But we used to need it because your hours were different and you were guaranteed hours and you did PD if something happened, right? But we don't that anymore, so we don't need
Okay.
that.
Okay, that
Right,
makes
that
sense.
kind of coverage. But it's still a good system for letting us know as quickly as possible that there's something we should know about what's going on with the lesson or with the child, right?
Okay.
Or with, if you need leave or whatever it is, right? Okay. Send your questions if you've got questions. And now please put on your timesheet 1.25 hours. Okay? Thanks, folks. Have a lovely evening. Bye.
Bye.